those TBRs that I make, do you think that I actually read them? Hi everyone, it is April, and today I am going to go through some past summer TBRs with you. That's right, I went way back through my summer TBRs starting out in 2017. And I looked at all of the books that I had put on multiple TBRs, whether I've read them or not. Let's just say some years are better than others, okay? So I had 9 books on my summer TBR back in 2017, and I didn't read 2 of them, which means that I read 7 out of the 9. Really not that bad, like, that's fine with me. Let's go through some of those books. We're gonna do this kind of rapid fire because we have 40 books to talk about, okay? So the first is The Husband's Secret by Liane Moriarty. I ended up really liking this. This is like a mix of contemporary and mystery. Very easy reading, definitely enjoyed. Next up is a book that I have not read, still on my shelves though. This is Beautiful Ruins by Jess Walter. This is about a woman who is an actress. She may or may not be dying, and she goes to this Italian resort, I believe, and meets an elderly man, and there's a connection between the two of them. Haven't read it though, so I don't know if it's any good or not. Next is The Invention of Wings by Sue Monk Kidd. I absolutely loved this. Historical fiction. It follows a little white girl in the South and a black girl in the South in the time of slavery, and they decide to leave the South together. They become best friends. Loved this story. Very good. Okay, so next is another book I have not read. This is The Silence of Bonaventure Arrow, and this is about Bonaventure, who doesn't speak. When he is born, he can't speak. And yet he becomes unbelievably beloved by his family, and everyone who meets him just really adores him. And it's about his story. My mom loved this one, and I still haven't read it. I'm sorry, Mom. Next up is The Glass Castle. I read this and loved this. One of my favorite memoir-y books that I've ever read. This follows Jeanette Walls and her childhood, which was very difficult with 2 kind of strange parents who don't always care for her and her siblings the way that they need. Loved the heart in this. We've also got The Silence, which is somewhere on my shelves, but I couldn't find it. Horror book where something has taken over the world, these little creatures that were unearthed, and they hunt by sound, and so you can't make a sound or they'll kill you. That was a lot of fun. Good place to start with horror. Next is Rebecca. I can't believe that it was so long ago that I read this. It feels like yesterday. So beautiful. This is a classic for a reason. Absolutely would highly recommend reading this. Very gothic. Loved it so much. So next we've got 3 Sisters, 3 Queens by Philippa Gregory. I had bought all of Philippa Gregory's books and started with this one and realized, oh my God, I hate her writing. So I started and ended with 3 Sisters, 3 Queens. She basically does historical fiction, taking the royalty in history and writing them out in fiction. I just find it really repetitive and it didn't work for me. Also read The Narrow Road to the Deep North. I don't remember this very well, but I know that I read it and felt kind of mixed things about it. It's definitely historical fiction about a guy who had gone to war and is recovering in some way. Oh, wow. It's strange how sometimes you can read a book and it like impacts you in a major way, like Rebecca, and then this one I can barely remember. What is that about? All right, moving right into 2018, I put 9 books on my summer TBR that year, and I read 8 out of the 9. Well done me. The first up is Kind of Cruelty. I hated this. This was such a silly book in my mind. It was a thriller about a stalker, and it didn't work for me. I found it quite ridiculous. Next is The Woman in Black. I love this book. I have read this 2 or 3 times now. For me, it's like the perfect summer read because it's a ghost story. And it's like the perfect thing to read when there's a thunderstorm. Give me a scary, spooky, dark night with a thunderstorm, and The Woman in Black and I will be a very happy girl. Next is the only book of the bunch that I didn't read that year, and this is The In the Vines. I still haven't read this. What in the world? It sounds so good. It's a gothic story about a woman whose family home comes with a lot of torment in her past. She goes to see her aunt who may have something wrong with her, and it's about her childhood and her, I think, trying to survive her aunt. Oh, it sounds like a lot of fun, and I still haven't read it. What is wrong with me? I also read My Cousin Rachel by Daphne du Maurier in this year and absolutely loved it. This is another gothic tale about a woman who marries into a family, and people don't think she has the best intentions. It's very unclear what her intentions is, and I thought it was very twisty-turny and just proves that Daphne du Maurier is absolutely meant to go down in history. She's wonderful. Next, I've got The Lifeboat by Charlotte Rogan. If you go on Goodreads and read about this, you will see how terrible the ratings are for this, and I don't understand. This is a wonderful historical fiction book about a woman named Grace who is a newlywed and also a widow. In 1914, the boat that she was on goes down. It goes down, and there are certain survivors. They all climb into a lifeboat, and they're all from different classes, and there's a lot of fighting. And in the end, well, you know it from the blurb on the back, she is on the trial for her life. I thought it was amazing. I don't know why people don't like this. It's great. Next is Pieces of Her by Karen Slaughter. This is a standalone by her. I think a lot of people don't like this book. I thought it was fun. This is about a woman who's out for lunch with her mom, and a shooter comes in the doors and starts shooting people, and her mom like goes into action and takes the shooter down, and she starts learning about her mom and her mom's history that she's really never shared. And I personally liked it, but like very unpopular opinion on my part. Okay, last for my 2018 summer TBR is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine. I loved this book. Eleanor will have a little spot in my heart forever. A contemporary book. Feels like she's this onion, very strange onion to be unpeeled, and you get this wonderful character development over the whole course of the book. Really, really loved this one. Okay, moving on to 2019. I only put 6 books on my TBR in 2019, and get this, I only read 3 of those books. Only 3. What? Like how is it that I did so much better in other TBRs where I had 9, but in this case I don't understand my brain. I think we can both agree it's wonky. Okay, it's wonky. So let's talk about the books that I wanted to read in 2019. The first is If You Want to Make God Laugh by Bianca Morez. She wrote Hum If You Don't Know the Words, one of my favorite books, and I still haven't read this. And this is about an abandoned baby and the 3 women who are linked to this baby in one way or another. It takes place in South Africa. It sounds incredible, and I still haven't read it. Like 2 years later. I did, however, read The Secret Life of Bees by Sue Monk Kidd. This was a wonderful book about a girl who misses her mom. Her mom has passed away, and she's trying to cling on to her by visiting the places that her mom visited. And she is living in the South, in South Carolina in 1964, and she runs away from home. And the story goes from there, and it was really, really lovely and wonderful. That's a great summer book. A book that I started and didn't finish. How many pages in did I get? 100 pages in, and I stopped reading it. This is 3 Things About Elsie by Joanna Cannon. I really enjoy Joanna Cannon's writing, so I think I might end up picking this up again. I'm definitely not getting rid of it from my shelves, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet. This is about Elsie. She is 84 years old, and a man, an elderly man, comes to stay at the home where she lives. And she's like, I recognize that guy, but he was meant to have died like 50 years ago, 60 years ago, and yet he's right there. And it's like a mystery that she has to uncover, which sounds like a lot of fun. Don't know why I put this down. We'll fix that. Okay, so next is Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna. If you guys don't know, I'm not a big Kristen Hanna fan, so I decided to unhaul this because she just doesn't work for me, which is very strange. She works for most people. But yeah, I passed that along. Hopefully someone else will read it and love it. Next is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is about a band and the story of the band coming together and splitting apart. It's told in a series of interviews. I thought it was a lot of fun. And then a book that I read this year actually was on my 2019 TBR, but read it only recently, is What Alice Forgot by Leanne Moriarty. I absolutely loved this book so much. This is about Alice who falls at the gym, hits her head. And when she wakes up, she thinks it's 10 years earlier. She thinks she's still happily married. She's not. She thinks she's pregnant with their first child, and she has like 2 or 3 kids. And she has to kind of piece back her life together. Again, I just thought this was raw, really great representation about infertility and miscarriage. I really enjoyed this. All right, guys, so the last year we're going to chat about is 2020. I don't know what provoked me to put 16 books on my summer TBR. Who does that? I don't know. What was wrong with me? I did read 12 of them though, so I'm very proud of myself when I consider how many were on there. I didn't read them all last year. Some of them I read this year, like Malorie by Josh Malerman. This is the 2nd installation in the Bird Box series. Horror story where there's something outside, and if you see it, you'll go crazy and kill other people and kill yourself. I enjoyed this, not as much as Bird Box, I'll be honest. I also put Survivor Song on my TBR. This is by Paul Tremblay. I ended up reading it from the library and I didn't like it. I was so disappointed by that book. And that is about a pandemic and about a pregnant woman who was bitten. It's like a zombie pandemic. Pregnant woman is bitten and she is like trying to find a cure with her doctor friend. It did not work for me. I also had Home Before Dark on here. That's a Riley Sager that he came out with in the summer of 2020. And it's a bit of a haunted house story. And I didn't end up really loving it. However, like, don't take it from me. If you have an inclination to pick that up, it feels like everyone else loved it. And it was just me that was kind of like, I wanted more. I wanted something different. Didn't work. Next is a book that I still haven't read, and this is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This is a prequel to the Hunger Games series, and it follows President Snow in the Hunger Games, and I still haven't read it. I have to do that. Must rectify it. It's like, it seems big, but it's YA, so it will read like a breeze. I must rectify this. All right, another book that I haven't read yet, but really want to, is American Predator. This is so disturbing. It's a true crime story about a man who was a serial killer. He would plant these kill kits all over the country, I think in America. Yeah, American Predator. Okay, so he'd plant all these kill kits and then kill people, but it was really hard for the police to track down who he was because he planted them all over America. And usually serial killers like use a certain little area, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, it sounds really disturbing, but I've heard it's an amazing read and I still haven't read it. Okay, I also put Americanah on the list. I did read this. This is about the immigration experience. I didn't love it quite as much as I had wanted to. I'm actually surprised that I didn't unhaul it. I think I will actually unhaul it because it didn't work for me. She's also said some problematic things. And I don't know whether or not I want to continue to read her. I feel mixed things about it. But yes, I am going to unhaul this. I didn't love it as much as I had really wanted to. Oh my God. The best book that I read in 2020 and my favorite horror book of all time is The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. This is about a woman's book club. They read like true crime books together, and a man moves into the neighborhood. He wants to join the book club, but they have a suspicion that he might be a vampire. It's as silly in some ways as that premise suggests, and it's as terrifying and gross as the premise suggests. It's fantastic. Please read it. Oh dear, Where the Crawdads Sing, I also had on my TBR, and I hated that book with a passion. Another unpopular opinion. Most people love this book. It's like a historical fiction mystery book about a girl who lives in the marshes and a murder that happens, and people think, oh, I think she did it. And it's about her story. There was way too much romance in there. Your girl has no heart. We both know that. It did not give me a heart. It shrank my heart. Okay, it shrank it. The House of Whispers by Laura Purcell is another one that I read. I just didn't enjoy it. This is about a girl whose father is like a doctor, and he is studying on his patients who are prisoners, and he's kind of doing these studies against their will, and there's also like a supernatural kind of vibe to the story. It just didn't work for me. I was kind of bored reading it, but I do like Laura Purcell's writing. She writes kind of gothic things, so I will read more from her, but this didn't work for me. Kindred is next. I finally read this year and really enjoyed it. It is a sci-fi book where this woman a black woman living in the 70s gets strangely like transported back in time again and again and again through her life. And she realizes she's being brought back to save one particular white boy who lives on a plantation, and his father is the plantation owner. So he's not the nicest boy at all times, as you can imagine. And it's about her connection to him. Like, why is she meant to save him repeatedly? I thought it was fantastic and really, really enjoyed this. Okay, so Confessions is next. And if I'm not mistaken, like it obviously hasn't stuck with me. I think Confessions was about a teacher. It's like her last day at school. She's decided to leave the school. Her daughter has died tragically on the same playgrounds at the school that she works. She is confronting her school, the students, because she thinks some of them, or one of them, or two of them, have something to do with her daughter's death. It was okay. I was expecting more. Didn't quite get it for me, do it for me, but it was pretty good. A lot of people love that one. A book I have not read is What Lies Between Us by John Mars, and I really want to. This was sent to me by Sandy, who is so sweet to do that. This is about two women who live together in the same house. They seem to have a fairly normal life together, except at the end of the night, Nina helps Maggie back to her room in the attic and into heavy chains. And there's a reason why she is in chains, and I don't know what it is. John Mars writes thrillers that like borderline on sci-fi. It's like this blend, and dystopian. So it still sounds like an amazing, amazing time, and I really have to pick this up. Oh my goodness, this next one was such a great book. This is An American Marriage by T.R. Jones, about a couple. The man in this couple is sentenced to a pretty long stint in jail for having raped a woman. He never raped her though. Like, the two people in this marriage totally understand he's 100% innocent and behind bars. And it's about what imprisonment can do to a marriage, and how often Black men are falsely imprisoned or given too long. Their sentences are too long, and it was incredible writing. I want to read everything by T.R. Jones because that was gorgeous. The Girl from Widow Hills is next, and I barely remember this, but I didn't like it. It's a thriller, and it's about a woman who goes to a home, like a new home, and creepy things start happening, but I didn't find it creepy enough. Like, you know me, when it comes to thrillers, I want to feel scared. Like, the closer I can get to gritty, the closer it can get to terrifying, the better in my mind. Okay, two more. Another one I still haven't read is Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. I absolutely adore this man, and this is his life. It's the story of his life living in South Africa as a child with a Black mother and a white father, which in and of itself, at the time that he was growing up, that was a crime. And hence the name, Born a Crime. And it's meant to be really thought-provoking and also funny because it's Trevor Noah, and I just want to read this. All of these books obviously are on my TBRs because I wanted to read them, and sometimes it just takes so long to get through everything. Long Bright River is the last one, and I did enjoy this book. It's definitely a gritty kind of crime book about a police detective who is finding that there is a serial killer out there bringing down and killing all of these women who are involved with drugs and prostitution, and her own sister is dealing with a lot of drug issues, and she's not talking to her and she can't find her. So it's this, yes, she's trying to track down the serial killer to do her job, but she's also trying to save her sister. I did enjoy it, but not so much for it to stay on my shelves. Whew, holy. So 40 books. I think I've done fairly well. Like, I honestly expected to like go through this list and be horrified by how little I had read, but I'm not as upset as I thought I was going to be. I'm also going to link in the description box below my 2021 summer TBR, which I am failing at. If you want to go and check that out, you can do that. Let me know in the comments below. Have you read any of these books that I mentioned, and have you enjoyed them? Have you hated some? Have you loved some? Let's chat about them. And I hope you're having a lovely summer, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye guys.